I'm going to survive for 100 days as a blacksmith.
But just surviving isn't enough.
I'll forge my own weapons and armor and use them to explore every corner of the new world. Echo Creek, Echron, Brandenburg, and Irvington. And in the end, I'll forge the ultimate weapon. Will I survive all the way to the end as a blacksmith? Day 1 of 100 has begun. To start crafting weapons, I need to get to the McCoy estate base. But first, I'll need electrical and mechanic skills to hotwire a car. My first goal was to gather food and some basic tools. To level up my electrical and mechanic skills, I hit a nearby warehouse. There, I started working on electronics while collecting tools I'd need later. But on day 1, something happened that should never happen that early. A sprinter caught me off guard and took a bite.
Oh my god, I'm losing it.
Luckily, it wasn't a bite, just a laceration. Then I opened a bathroom door, only to be rushed by 3 zombies. I barely pushed them off and ran for my life. Night had fallen before I realized, and I was still busy dismantling electronics. Then suddenly, an alarm clock went off. I rushed to the source of the noise and turned off the alarm. Thankfully, no zombies showed up.
It was one hell of a cursed, exhausting day.
Whew! It's getting late, so I'll get some sleep now and head out early tomorrow. Day 2 has begun. I've got to keep working toward reaching McCoy. I found tools for car maintenance in a nearby warehouse, and luckily there was a junkyard nearby, perfect for grinding that skill. I finally reached the required level for both mechanics and electrical. But of course I ran into another problem, or maybe I caused it myself.
Wow.
While trying to sleep in a car, I broke the window. Barehanded, brilliant move. The pain kept me from getting any sleep.
It hurts. Not just my hand, but my heart too.
I had to retreat to where I slept the night before, waiting for the pain to ease, until I finally passed out. On day 3, I planned to hit up the gas station nearby and finally find a working vehicle. Luckily, the gas station wasn't too crowded with zombies. I fueled up without much trouble, and even found a decent car. That meant I could finally head straight for McCoy. But,
Whew, that was close.
The road there was a nightmare, clogged with wrecks and crawling with zombies.
Okay, nice and slow. I think we're good. Gotta be real gentle here. And we need precision driving here. Okay, good.
I arrived at McCoy later than expected, but in one piece. Just as I was about to clear the area before nightfall, a horde poured out from the fishing shack. I tried to use the terrain to my advantage, but ended up trapping myself inside. Luckily, they scattered. I was able to take them down one by one. Then I swept the rest of McCoy, clearing every corner. Finally, I secured McCoy, my base, and the forge of my blacksmith journey. Alright, time to get serious and start prepping for the real mission. Before heading out to our first destination, Echo Creek, I took a look through the crafting menu to see what I could make. Since I haven't read any recipes yet, I decided to level up my metal welding skill first and craft the scrap metal armor set and a scrap metal chopper. Starting from day 4, I focused on leveling up my metal working skill and gathering materials for armor and weapons. I found a car with a large trunk near the gas station, then hit up Muldroff's auto shop and warehouses for the tools and supplies I needed. After that, I headed to a junkyard and used a torch to grind up my welding skill. The junkyard was surrounded by a metal fence, making it the perfect safe zone for working. By the night of day 9, I had everything ready for the first big step. Finally, on day 10, I was ready to dive into real blacksmith work. First, I suited up in proper work clothes and crafted my first weapon, the scrap metal chopper. One on each hip and one on my back, I geared up with a triple chopper setup. Next, I wanted to start crafting armor, but my tailoring skill wasn't high enough. so I patched up some clothing to level it up first. And finally, the full set of shiny silver scrap metal armor was complete. It's still just scrap gear, so not the best, but hey, it should hold up just fine, right? First stop on the journey, Echo Creek. All packed up and ready to go. Time to hit the bed and call it a day. I drove out from my base and made my way toward Echo Creek, one of Build 42's brand new areas. It was a long drive, passed by some pigs on a ranch, and soon I reached a chicken farm marking the entrance to Echo Creek. After that long ride, I definitely needed a break, and this spot, perfect for testing the gear I made myself. I went to take out a few zombies nearby and hop the fence to gear up, but then...
Wait!
I finally managed to suit up completely, just in time to deal with the zombies chasing me. Once the area was clear, I grabbed a chicken from the farm and brought it back to the kitchen. Then I headed into the bedroom, dropped my bag, took off my helmet, and finally got some well-earned rest. After shaking off the fatigue, I prepped the chicken I grabbed earlier and packed myself a solid lunch for exploring Echo Creek. And just like that, I arrived at my first target location, Echo Creek. The first thing I did upon arriving at the edge of Echo Creek was swap out my old car. Then I started exploring the town. It was a rural area with no commercial zones, just rows of houses stretching on and on. At the far end of the neighborhood, there was a church, one of the few spots with a noticeable zombie presence. After checking out the town, it was clear. Echo Creek had no stores and no real loot spots, just a small, quiet place with not much to offer. So after the quick sweep, I headed straight back home. Even after that long drive to Echo Creek, I rushed back home for one big reason. My weapons were holding up like butter. I realized they were wearing down way too fast. I thought I was ready with my triple chopper setup, but turns out it wasn't enough to go all in. So after wrapping up the Echo Creek run in one piece, I went straight to prepping for the next stop, Echron. I crafted 4 more scrap metal short swords to beef up my arsenal. And then it was time for Echron. Even the road leading there felt off. The first thing I saw in Echron was the college. They say it's a zombie nest, but the area looked quiet, so I jumped in, swinging my handcrafted weapons. But as I slowly approached the entrance, I spotted a swarm of zombies inside and knew something was off. I backed away and made a quick escape. That night I holed up in a house, had some roasted chicken before bed, and decided to rest up for whatever came next. The next morning, I headed straight back to the college. Why keep going back? Well, there's a library inside, and if I want to level up my blacksmithing, I need those books and recipes. But this time, there were even more zombies than the day before. So I took a step back and decided to scout around Echron first. While exploring the area, I came across a church and figured I'd take a look inside to see how many zombies were lurking around. After taking out the zombies outside, the inside of the church was eerily quiet. Even the morgue in the basement, which I stumbled upon by chance, didn't seem to pose any threat. After scouting the area, I returned to the college and lured zombies into nearby houses to deal with them. At that point, it felt like the fighting would never end. Just as things were getting out of hand, a lifeline appeared right in front of me. I spotted a car in great condition, quickly moved all my gear into it, and used the old one to honk the horn and lure the zombies away from the college. But the number of zombies I saw with my own eyes was insane, way too many to take on one by one. So I decided to bring in the big guns, a police bus parked in the lot. I parked the bus right near the college, hit the siren, and made a run for it. After checking how many zombies had shown up, it was time to go home and gear up. So I took the hint and drove straight home. As soon as I got home, I crafted more scrap metal short swords to prep for another run at Echron College.
Wait, am I stuck?
Seriously? After finally breaking free, I made a whetstone and started sharpening all my weapons. After all that careful prep, I double-checked my weapons, just to be sure. Then I headed back to Echron, ready for round 2. I took down the scattered zombies one by one, except the ones already lured to the police bus. I lured them to the fence but tripped mid-fight, almost a disaster. But as the alpha female I am, I bounced right back up and finished the job. And after days of fighting, I finally made it into the college gym. Thanks to all the luring I did, the inside was surprisingly quiet. Once inside, getting to the library wasn't too bad. I took my time digging through the shelves and found all the books and recipes I needed. After successfully graduating from Echron College, I stopped by a nearby factory to gather more materials for my blacksmithing. Fresh off my diploma, I was a bit too hyped and decided to show off my new skill, smashing through metal doors while slaying zombies. Once I cleared the area, I looted the crates inside. Then suddenly I heard a noise. Zombies started swarming in from somewhere. Tried to hold them off, but it got sketchy fast, so I bolted straight to the car. But for some reason, the car I jumped into wouldn't start. Tried switching seats a few times. Still nothing. Had no choice but to ditch the car and run. Problem was, I was so tired I could barely move. Bad timing, with zombies right on me. Managed to take down one sprinter, lost the rest, and ducked into a nearby warehouse to catch my breath. Exhausted and without a safe place to crash, I decided to go back for the car, scoped the area from a distance, and slowly moved in. After making sure the zombies had moved on, I jumped in the car and took off. Found a much better ride not far from there, swapped out the wreck, and finally made it home by nightfall. After finally making it back home, I got right to work prepping for the next destination, Brandenburg. This time, I'm aiming for proper metal gear and a few short sword blades. Most of my time went into crafting armor rather than weapons. It was a pretty involved process. I started by turning sheet metal into armor plates, read skill books I brought back from Echron once I leveled up, and shredded all kinds of clothes to patch fabric and level up my tailoring. Of course, I also crafted some buckles. Can't make armor without those. And just like that, I finished crafting a new set of metal armor, tougher and darker than the old scrap gear. Then it was time to craft my weapon. Compared to the armor, the weapon was much simpler to make. But since crafting the handle required level 1 carving, I quickly worked on that first. Once the blade and handle were ready, I combined them into a short sword. And of course, I didn't forget to sharpen the short sword with a whetstone. Finally, both the metal armor and the short sword were ready to go. Now all that's left is to hit the road.
Wonder what Brandenburg's like.
When I arrived in Brandenburg, it felt like the sky had split open, rain pouring down in the dead of night. Since it was already late, my top priority was finding a safe place to hunker down. At a glance, the streets looked quiet, but the moment I stopped the car, zombies started appearing from somewhere. Felt like a bunch were trapped inside the buildings. It was dark, and for a while, it felt like I'd just be stuck in small skirmishes all night. But luckily, I found a quiet little house where I could finally rest. The rain was still falling the next day. It had been like this for days, so I drove around just waiting for the weather to clear. And finally, near a convenience store by the mall, the skies started to brighten. I finally started properly scouting the area and gathering supplies. Found a new vehicle, but decided to leave it for now. Used my old beat-up car for looting instead. Feeling bold, I pulled into the Gigamart parking lot. Unlike yesterday, the lot was packed. Zombies were already lining up to greet me. The zombies just kept coming, and I could tell fighting in Brandenburg wasn't going to be easy. But hey, at least my weapons were looking pretty slick. The freshly honed short sword, sharpened with a whetstone, felt like a whole different beast compared to the old scrap ones. Eager to put my handcrafted weapons to the test, I set off a siren near the mall to lure in more zombies. After that, I pulled back to my shelter to catch my breath. And then I returned to the battlefield, but something went wrong. The ambulance must have been in bad shape because the siren cut out way too soon and the zombies just wandered off. I took note of the situation, but didn't panic, just focused on the horde in front of me. Zombies came at me from all directions, but I kept my distance and lined them up one by one. There were quite a lot of zombies, but I couldn't shake the feeling there were more lurking somewhere. After scanning the area with tense eyes, I finally made my way into the Giga Mart. Once I got inside the mart, I found out something I really didn't want to know. The power had gone out while I was busy fighting through the night. Guess I was hoping for a bit of luck. But hey, zombie life never makes it easy. I was running low on food after all that fighting, and I knew I had to find something to eat soon. But my body was completely worn out. It just wouldn't move like I needed it to. So I stayed put, kept quiet, and only dealt with the zombies that sensed I was still breathing. As I pushed deeper inside, things took a turn. I got bitten. Luckily, my armor took the hit, and after grabbing some food, I made it back to the shelter and finally had a solid meal. With the mall explored and my stomach full, I figured it was time to check out more of Brandenburg. The weather wasn't great, but while driving around, I stumbled upon a pretty massive building. The building looked like a courthouse and a prison. Instead of rushing in, I triggered the police car siren first. And that's when things took a turn. Zombies came pouring out, breaking down the doors at the sound of the siren. I tried luring and picking off a few at a time, but their numbers never seemed to shrink. My gear made fighting easier, but after non-stop battles, my weapons were nearly falling apart. I took a break in the car to think, and ended up making the worst decision. Since my metal short sword still had a bit of durability left, I figured I could at least clear out the zombies outside the prison. After that, I focused on recovering my condition and even took a caffeine pill to stay awake. Then, the zombie hunt began. Night fell, day came, but the fighting never stopped, and one by one, my metal short swords broke down. Part of me thought it'd be smarter to just run, but with the terrain boxed in, there was no clear escape route. I had no choice but to pull out my backup, an old scrap short sword, and fight my way out of the chaos. After 2 brutal nights of non-stop fighting, I finally cleared out the zombies swarming the outside of the prison. I finally shut off the siren after all that noise, and just when it felt like it was time to rest, I went and made another terrible choice. Thinking most of the zombies were gone after 2 days of non-stop fighting, I went ahead and walked right into the prison. Wandering the dark halls without a second thought, I ended up in a dead end, and from the exit, the only way out, zombies were pouring in. To make things worse, one snuck up from behind and tore into my shoulder. With every last bit of strength left in my body, I fought them off.
Come on.
Breathing hard, I finally found a moment to catch my breath and tend to my wounds. After catching my breath, I made a break for the exit and got out of that prison fast. Then I hit the road, heading toward the outskirts to find a safe spot to rest. But it didn't take long before I ran into another serious problem. I thought I'd found a quiet place by the river, but it was swarming with zombies.
Why are there so many of them?
It didn't take long to see why. I was standing in front of a military base. At this point, I was too exhausted to fight. I had to rest. So I ran straight to the car and started the engine. But then...
No.
The car nearly flipped, and for a second I thought this was how my 100-day run would end. Thankfully, fate didn't turn on me, and I made a clean escape from Brandenburg. I finally returned home, the place I'd been longing for. Came back home after all that, only to find zombies acting like they owned the place. Cleared them out one by one, and finally took my safe house back. Right after that, I got to work prepping for the next journey. This time I was forging a full set of jointed metal armor, a machete blade, and a sword blade, the ultimate gear a blacksmith like me could create. And to craft these final weapons, I had to reach level 9 in metalworking. Luckily, I had all the materials ready from the early days, so I was able to forge the final armor and weapons without a hitch. After learning my lesson from the shoulder injury back in Brandenburg, I skipped the backpack and geared up with a full set of jointed metal armor, no bites this time. With everything packed and ready, I checked the beat-up car one last time. Turns out the hood was in rough shape. There wasn't enough time to fix it, so the plan was to switch vehicles once I made it safely to Irvington. It wasn't the perfect setup, but with that, the final journey began. But not long after, I had no choice but to switch cars. Turns out the damage was worse than I thought. The car wouldn't go any further. It set me back a bit, but with a new ride, the journey was back on track. Eventually, I pulled up to a massive building, exhausted. The first place I ended up was a livestock barn at the edge of Irvington. Seeing living, breathing animals gave me this strange sense of comfort. Before heading deeper into Irvington, I crashed at a nearby building by the barn to catch up on some much-needed sleep. And the next day, I was about to leave the barn and head into Irvington, but something felt off with the car. I drove around frantically looking for a replacement, and luckily found a decent one not too far away. While heading to the gas station to fill it up, I even came across a sleek sports car. Parked it there for later, just in case. After setting up a generator at the gas station and fueling up, I spent the night nearby. Only then was I finally ready to take a proper look around Irvington. Finally driving around the area, the first place I came across was an elementary school. I couldn't help but set off the siren, just to see if any little zombie students would show up. Then I dropped by a church for a quick prayer, and even did a little shopping at the clothing store. At the fire station, I lured in the nearby zombies and kicked off a real fight. When I swung the two-handed sword, it sliced through them like butter. Definitely felt like a true endgame weapon. While exploring every corner of Irvington, I came across a building that felt off. Zombies were swarming the area, but after a tough fight, I forced my way inside. Turns out it was a mart. Gasping for air, I gathered food and batteries, hoping to restock. But just as I was walking around to check the area, the car refused to start. Panic hit me for a second, but I quickly jumped out of the car and lured the zombies away. Using the building's windows to my advantage, I took them out one by one. Then I rushed back to the car to check the damage. Luckily, aside from a broken window, everything else was intact, thanks to how fast I lured them away. Before any more could show up, I topped off the tank with what little gas was left and floored it out of there. Once I was out, I made it back to the gas station, filled the tank to the brim, and even found a nearby house to finally get some rest. Then came day 92. With most of Irvington explored, it was time to check out the outskirts. That's how I ended up at a racetrack tucked away on the edge of town. Thought I'd take a lap around the track while I was there, but the place wasn't nearly as quiet as it looked. Zombies were swarming the grounds, pouring out from inside non-stop. I held them off for days, but never managed to clear them all. And just like that, day 99 arrived. So I rushed back to the gas station, grabbed the sports car, and tore through the horde, speeding across the track like it was my victory lap. And just like that, I made it. Survived as a blacksmith all the way to the outskirts of Irvington, finishing my journey at the racetrack. On the winner's podium of Irvington, the final stop, my 100-day journey came to an end. The machete and sword blades I brought along? Yeah, they're worn down to the bone. I may not have conquered all of Irvington with just a few weapons, but they packed enough punch to get the job done. If you made it this far, I'm guessing you enjoyed the ride. Hit that subscribe button and I'll keep bringing you even better content. Then hey, watch those teeth everyone!